many other risks. And it needs to have its main focus because globally, the risks associated with cybersecurity have increased tremendously. And it's very imminent that every organization needs to be able to future-proof, but management cannot do it all by itself. And the board, as the leaders and those that are consulted by executive management, must be well versed with this subject. Some people have thought about cybersecurity as something that is technical, but we are here to be able to demystify that all the way from the top. And we have with us amazing panelists who are seasoned IT professionals and governance professionals that speak a language that's similar to what's discussed at board level. And so at this point, my name is Eunice Muangala. And for a profile about myself, we will be able to see that. I'm a seasoned IT professional and also being able to join the governance arm. And during my time that I have served at the governance level, I was able to notice that technology is not really discussed much, but this is a topic that needs to be on the table in every boardroom, at every board meeting. It must be recognized. So that's a profile about me. I have been able to enjoy experience in the technical field for over a decade, and experience that I have spans across the financial services industry, telecommunications, the professional services industry, as well as the manufacturing industry. I'm very passionate about IT. So for me, demystifying these technical components is something that I love to do, because IT should not be something that is very difficult for everybody to understand, especially now that it's part of our daily lives. I am a mentor and a coach to aspiring professionals. Yes, I love to inspire everybody that's trying to grow into the IT field. And I'm also a governance enthusiast. And so I serve on the leading boards of Leading Boards Africa. And I'm happy to be here. I hope all of you are happy to be here and all of you are ready to learn. And so that is simply about me. So I will be your moderator for this webinar series. And we will begin with talking about what Leading Boards does, so we can all understand how it blends with what ISACA does as well, and why they collaborated to start this webinar series. So we will be showcasing a video showing the different services that Leading Boards offers, as well as what ISACA offers as well, so that as participants, you have places and areas, if you have places and areas where you would like to consult regarding governance and regarding information systems assurance and controls, you have points of contact. We have a team that's also joining us from ISACA and Leading Boards, and they're on hand to assist you with any questions after this webinar series that you may want to follow up on. Thank you very much, Leading Boards Africa. We will now display a profile for the ISACA Kampala chapter so that we can enlighten you on what they offer in the field of information technology.
Could I please have screen sharing? Okay, perhaps I'll just talk about it. Good morning, everybody. My name is Bernard Wanyama. I'm privileged to serve as the president at ISACA Kampala. ISACA is a global organization that brings together professionals in digital technology from across the world. We provide research, training, networking, and the ability to engage and advocate for a better world in terms of digital trust. We believe that technology has positive potential for transforming humankind. And at Kampala chapter, we have over 450 members who are drawn from across multiple sectors in the economy. And we provide them with a place to network, to grow their skills, and to increase their capacity to serve the organization. Our members serve in roles such as IT audit, privacy, governance, cybersecurity, as well as the traditional technical and compliance and risk management roles. We have a number of programs that run across the year. We have a secretariat that's based in Kampala, and we engage both public and private sector to ensure that we have impact in our local economy, and we're able to consolidate the efforts of different players and stakeholders and take our digital economy forward as a country. I invite you to engage with us. Our website is www.isaca.or.ug. I will paste that in the chat and perhaps share the materials as we go along. Thank you so much. Back to you, Eunice.
Thank you so much, Bernard. Just before Bernard leaves, he is the current serving president for ISACA, and he's a very resourceful professional. Bernard, I needed to mention that. Oh, all right. So once again, welcome if you've just joined in right now. And as you join us, we would like for you to fill in our poll, a quick poll just to indicate which industry you work in and which industry your organization is best, as well as the role that you play in your organization. So please fill that poll as it pops up so that we can get to know you better and we can be able to share insights that are related to what you actually do. All right, I see that many of the people that are joining us so far are in the financial services industry, and we also have audit and consulting. We do have people from the health sector, as well as insurance and the public sector. So we're very happy to have a number of people from different industries that are coming in, because that shows your interest in this subject, which is a very universal subject that must be discussed across the board of all businesses. And the polls will continue to come through, so please be able to respond. There will be specific questions that we'll be asking you. just so that we can be able to get all the information that we require so that we can be able to share related insights. At this point, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker. We will be having a keynote address from one of our main key people in IT, Mr. Peter Mukuru. Peter is a seasoned IT professional. He's passionate about digital transformation and has served in a number of sectors. He works with leading and high-performing multicultural teams in private and the public sector, and has been able to execute on multi-million-dollar projects. So he carries a wealth of experience. He's held C-level positions and serves as a non-executive director on several companies. And he's very passionate about IT and cybersecurity, and holds an MBA and a master's together with several professional certifications. Peter is very passionate about continuous learning. He's a coach and a mentor as well, and he is a volunteer. I know that he is a Rotarian, and he's very proud to be engaged in humanitarian services. So Peter, you're very, very welcome. We cannot wait to share into your knowledge and acquire all the insights that you have to share with us. I believe this is going to be an eye-opener and a light bulb moment for many people that are joining us, those that are seated on boards, those that are aspiring leaders, those at EXCO, senior management, junior management. I believe we also have people joining us that are not yet at management level, but have the aspirations to actually grow up the ladder. So we are happy to be able to share into your insights, and please feel free to take it away at this point.
Thank you very much, Ines, for the kind introduction. Good morning, colleagues. Happy Heroes and Heroine Day. I think that you're serving your organizations and serving humanity and your stakeholders already makes you heroes in your respective capacities. So we'll make a short presentation to get us started. It's in line with the theme today and the conversation today about future-proofing the boardroom. And we'll, in this context, talk about cybersecurity fundamentals in the next about 20 minutes. And we'll look at the board roles, business environment definitions, the rationale for cybersecurity, some of the challenges, and what can we do as boards, and hopefully after that have an interesting conversation. And as we do this, I just want to keep sharing some nuggets of that I found quite inspiring. And there's one which says, "He who conceals his disease cannot expect to be cured." So as we converse and as you ask your questions, I also invite you to also share your experiences and your insights, because each of us is a professional, each of us has experience, and you might you might be able to share insights from your industry that can help another person here. So hope we can have some peer learning. So let me start our conversation with wisdom from Chinua Achebe. Most of us would have read or may have heard of a book called Things Fall Apart. And in there, it talks of a bird which was asked why he was always flying. The bird is called Eneke. And the bird replied that since men have learned how to shoot without missing their mark, I have learned to fly without perching on a twig. Basically, the bird realizes that men who are hunting now their art and ability to hit the birds is on point, and therefore the bird is changing its ways to ensure that it survives. And I think as we look into our environments, change is one constant, and as we look into cybersecurity, we have to check if we are the hunter, how are we changing our hunting skills? If we are the bird, how are we ensuring that we are not targeted? So the board has many responsibilities, but the board is ultimately responsible and accountable for running and managing the organization, of course, at a strategic level, and they'll get this to management. But if you look at the Companies Act and a lot of reading on corporate governance, I've cherry-picked a few for purpose of our conversation today, but the board sets the strategic direction. It creates the environment to ensure that there is value created for the stakeholders, but for all the other, for the shareholders and the other stakeholders beyond shareholders. And of course, ensures they manage performance. And for our conversation today, I would say the board is responsible for ensuring that the company transforms and ensures that it creates value. The board also is responsible for creating the governance environment and ensuring that that governance environment is sustained. The cultivation of the values and the culture, their stewardship and fiduciary duties and their accountability. So in a way, the board ensures that there's a trust environment in terms of the company being trusted by within the ecosystem that it operates. And ultimately, this is not just a project that it has a start and end. Idea the company should be a going concern, that you're working day in, year out, you're making profit or meeting your strategic objectives. The board is responsible for risk management. And of course, the business needs to continue. So the board also needs to ensure that the company is resilient, that should anything hit it, it's able to withstand that and come back strong. And in our context today, we look at it from a point of digital, the realm of digital. So digital transformation or digital trust or digital resilience. And as we speak, let's keep these three pillars or legs of the stool in mind. So transform, ensure trust, ensure that there is resilience. And the world we are in, as we see, of course, it's always changing, but we see a lot of digitalization, automating, our processes, a lot of interconnectedness, new technologies coming on board, and of course, a lot of new value, new products, which are digitally inspired, things that we couldn't do 5 years ago, 10, 15, 20 years ago. We are now able to have, many of you in the financial services sector. A few years ago, you had to go to your branch, your specific branch to transact within the same bank, but you had to go to a specific branch. Now, I could go even outside my bank network and visit any other bank, and I'm still able to get services. And we still see a very ambiguous and certain, complex and volatile environment, consumer behavior, economies, and of course, the environment and the supply chain. So a lot of good things are happening and something to celebrate, but of course, also in the midst of a lot of storms. Regulation, we've always had laws, and I speak to the Companies Act. We're in Uganda, so I speak to Uganda, quite a lot. And those of you who run within public companies, you have Table F. Of course, there is responsibility for the board to manage risk, and as I mentioned earlier, but within Table F, there is also very specific, and these words I picked. So board should look into the risks and controls to do with operation. They talk about technology, and of course, technology is broad, but today we shall talk about digital technologies. Talk about business continuity, disaster recovery, and compliance. So you can't say we didn't know or we don't know, we cannot, this is not ours. We see a lot of laws within the country and of course beyond: computer misuse, data protection and privacy, electronic signatures and transactions, and so many others. And of course, industry specific or sector specific regulations, both local and international, that we need to conform to. In all these things, of course, cyber risk is, and the landscape is increasing. The vectors of attack are increasing. The cyber crime or cyber enabled crime is also on the rise. And of course, the fact that cyber crime are quite borderless. So unlike the traditional one, that if you have your car, I have to be physically, where the car is to steal it. Cyber risk, I could be anywhere and perpetrate an attack, in any other part of the country. I don't need to be near you. So a lot of good stuff, a lot of regulation, but also a bit of risk. Those of you who have gone to hospital, when you go to hospital, they make a quick check of your temperature, your pressure and so on. A survey by Ernst & Young about 2 years ago in 2021, their information risk survey, security survey, I just picked a bit of it, and they talk about the posture of companies and how much are they aware of what's going on. So hackers being able to use vulnerabilities or exploit vulnerabilities within procurement and supply chain, and how much the companies know. You'll see about 34% don't know, about 26, they say not so often, 23 about some extent. So about 50 to 70% of companies have no idea what's going on, or they have not been purposeful. Cybersecurity teams are neither consulted or consulted too late when we are making decisions. Again, about 50 to 70% they either don't know, or it is something that happens by accident or that often. And of course, the fact that we roll out new technologies trying to meet some business requirements, but we've not allowed sufficient oversight to ensure that cybersecurity issues are taken care of. Again, the same number. So the environment could be different, but these are global figures, and maybe it speaks to us. The World Economic Forum looks at a huge increase in ransomware, according to their survey risk report of 2022. The gaps in cybersecurity professionals, but also the value in digital commerce. So there is an upside that we need to go this way, $800 billion in terms of growth by 2024, just next year. And I'm sure this figure keeps changing. And of course, also the fact that human error seems to be a great risk factor, or most of the cybersecurity issues are traced back to human error. So it's not just an issue of technology, it's also an issue of looking at our issues. Harvard Business Review surveyed several, this is within the, I think, the Americas, but we could relate to several directors, this director survey, and about 65% believe that they would have a material attack, 30% believe they don't know how to cope. So it is around us, it is with us, it's no longer the future is with us. But what is cybersecurity? And the jury is still out on having a uniform definition across board. Even the word cybersecurity, is there a space in the middle? Is it one word? There's a lot of literature and different opinions, but without getting pedantic and splitting hairs on the format, let's look at what's the content. So for today's conversation, collective methods, technologies, and processes that are meant to protect information assets from threats of information that is being processed, being stored, or being transported in all these interconnected world of things. So that is cybersecurity, and I would invite you to interpret it in your way, but as long as you look at protecting your information assets against threats. And many times we talk about the CIA confidentiality, that those who don't have access should not get to the information. Integrity, that once you send the data, it should get to wherever it was going in the format and shape and boundaries of which you sent it. That if I need a service, it's available. If I need data, it's available. I'm never locked out. I never have a denial of service. And that I can trust that the one who sent it to me is he or she who says they are, and that they cannot deny, and that I can also not deny that I received it. So as we converse, these are just as a form of definition and to ensure that we all have the same understanding. And I said, caveat here that, the definition and terms of wording might differ, but in terms of concept, we all revolve around the same things. So should boards be concerned about cybersecurity? I believe from the triage, we will see that yes, but let's look at some of our specific issues. If you look at the annual crime report of Uganda, you see an increase in terms of numbers of reported cases. These might not be the total incidents in the country, but these are reported cases. And 2022, this amounted to close to 20 billion Uganda shillings that was reported. That's about $5 million. This is reported. However, there are other, statistics that seem to suggest that this figure is much higher, perhaps in the tune of over $100 million within the country alone. but let's talk about what has been published. Beyond the figures and the statistics, drilling it down, we see most of us said we are financial, but we see non-financial institutions being attacked, whether it's disabling systems for some of our utilities. Of course, in the financial sector, I think just at the beginning of June, there's a story that came out about 1.3 billion in one of the financial institutions. Our parliament's account got hijacked by somebody. We've seen mobile money services, but we also we see international incidents all over the place. So there's a lot of incidents happening around us, and the global risk report projects that cybersecurity continues to be in the medium and long term a risk factor across board. Of course, issues of climate change seem to dominate, but cybersecurity from a technology perspective or insecurity keeps there. So this is not just an IT issue. It's not just a technical issue. It's an issue that each of us at a strategic and business level, from a point of sustainability, existential threat, be concerned about as boards. The top threats and trends, the figures might differ. Sometimes one report puts the other above, but we see social engineering, which seems to rhyme with human error on one part, or human ingenuity, or human stupidity in one part. People are, duped into thinking things are what they are, and then they are, tagged advanced persistent threats. There's a saying in the cybersecurity world that there are those who know they've been attacked, and then there are those who don't know that they're under attack. So sometimes when you see the symptoms, you may have been attacked for a week, a month, sometimes a whole year, and you don't know about that. And remember, confidentiality, I might be looking at what I'm not supposed to look at. Ransomware and patch systems and so on. And the actors are many, from state to criminals to terrorist groups to competition to just thrill seekers. So if you're not attacked for criminal purposes, it may just be a person who just wants satisfaction that they could break into you. And there are a number of challenges, as you'll see, that sometimes the crime is silent. When I eavesdrop on something, I have not broken anything, I've not stolen your bottle of water or your server or your car or broken into the safe, but I'm looking at information that I'm not supposed to look at. Our forensic capabilities, the digital forensic and evidence handling in the cyber world is challenged. We see laws getting enacted to support the judicial system, but still issues of boundariness, understanding, unreported cases for fear of reputational damage, and prioritizing these risks at an organizational level. And of course, one of the other issues is how do we quantify them? If I bought a table and it was stolen, I could say, what's the value of replacing the table? But I would say, if you switch off all your systems, can you survive? And what's the business loss in that? And there are different models one could look at. So another African proverb which says, don't forget what it is to be a sailor because you're a captain. At an individual level, as a board member, as a member of senior management, or as a stakeholder or shareholder, you will be a target of attack because of the access to information that you have, your privileged access. So we also need to take note. So what do we need to do in terms of setting the tone? Well, first of all, we need to take a holistic approach. As you remember, we need to look into transforming, building trust, and ensuring resilience. But we should also look at our people, our processes, and the technology, and of course, ultimately, the data, the holy grail, our data. So as board, we need to set the environment right. We need to ensure that this is embedded and we nurture a positive culture, and hopefully in the conversation, we'll break these things down. We need to look into getting the right information from the environment and being able to know our assets and establish baselines so that we're able to know, are we improving or not? Of course, risk management as a field is quite mature. So take a look into this risk, but from the point of cyber risk, and certainly take action and collaborate, because we might not be able to do this alone. And check, are we progressing? What are the lessons learned? What are the emerging issues, and build those in. It's difficult to say what's in the boardroom, what's organization-wide, but I will make an attempt on this. So while you're in the boardroom, you're a board member, so on, how do you create that culture? So ensuring that cybersecurity and of course the issues of digital transformation, building digital trust, building digital resilience on the board agenda. How do you ensure that your strategy, your business strategy is digitally inspired? How do you ensure that you look into risks and incident reporting? What's the board perspective in terms of protecting vis-a-vis ensuring that they are a going concern? I could protect something so much, like you put burglar proofing and you fail to enter your house, but also ensuring that we have a look into resilience and bouncing back. Tactical versus strategic. Are we looking at it as just a technical issue? Are we looking at it as a strategic imperative? Are we looking at it as just fault finding and trying to chase that CISO, that person we did not like, or an issue of learning and continuous improvement? Board composition, most boards will have an accountant, will have a lawyer. Are we ensuring that we have skill sets, digital skills on the board? Are we digital savvy as board members? Or do we also have a digital skilled person on the board, a cybersecurity professional or an IT professional on the board? And which committees are we setting up? Of course, not any one size fits all. We have to look at this and ensuring that we get expertise if we don't have it. The board attitude, I think, ultimately sets the tone for how the company treats digital trust and digital transformation. If the board has a level of apathy against this, it's technical things, we don't want to care about it, that's the tone you set. And ultimately that culture tone of transforms into the whole organization, becomes organization-wide. So the governance around cybersecurity, what are our strategies, our standards, our structuring, our roles and responsibilities, the level of autonomy that we give this security, cybersecurity risk, incident reporting, inventory management, the metrics that we choose this, and not just looking at failure, but also looking at success. What does success mean? And certainly the technical skills and awareness. I'd like to close with a video from ISACA, which hopefully should wrap all this conversation up.
Cybersecurity is a huge challenge for companies today. Why? For starters, every organization.
I hope you can hear the sound. Somebody give me a thumbs up.
Yep. Yes, we can, Peter.
Okay.
Cybersecurity is a huge challenge for companies today. Why? For starters, every organization has unique vulnerabilities. Second, it's hard for info security managers, CISOs, and the board of directors to get aligned on what those risks are, let alone how to address them. Plus, the stakes have never been higher. Cyber threats are growing, and so are the costs of failure. Attacks from malware, phishing, hacking, and social engineering can stop business in its tracks and cause catastrophic business disruption. ISACA's CMMI Cyber Maturity Platform meets these challenges head-on. Rather than promoting maturity in general, it helps companies pinpoint the risks most relevant to their business and customizes improvement plans to match. Aligned with globally accepted industry frameworks, the assessment generates a unique risk profile for your organization, prioritizes gaps in capabilities, identifies the maturity required to achieve your organizational goals, and recommends options to address those gaps. Managers get the granular detail they need to assess and mature risk-prioritized cyber capabilities. CISOs and CIOs get broader insight to plan, monitor, and manage cyber maturity. And the board gets the confidence of clear, consistent reporting on the overall progress of cybersecurity risk management. The result? Strategic growth toward true cyber resilience. That's ISACA's CMMI Cyber Maturity Platform.
So there's no form to fill, but we have the president of the ISACA Kampala chapter. And of course, the form can be accessed online, but we have collaboration with ISACA, and we can have those conversations. I like to end with this quote that a canoe does not know who the leader is. When it turns, everybody gets wet. So at the end of the day, we need to protect our companies. We need to look at all risk, because if something goes wrong, then it affects everybody. I'd like to thank you and hand back to Eunice. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you for those insights. I personally I've been able to just keep wondering regarding the topic of cybersecurity. It seems to me that this starts from a personal, from the personal level of how an individual actually appreciates this subject, and then it can trickle down to all the people around them. And so even as board members or leaders of organizations, we cannot spread the gospel of cybersecurity if we do not maintain security in our personal lives. So cybersecurity has become a very important topic in our daily lives. Everybody has, a majority of people have had experience or interacted with a smartphone. And at one point, there's been an attempt to either hack them or an intruder trying to get into, to gain access into their private information. And so all of us should be very concerned about this. CEOs also sit on the board, and I believe that we still have many people here that are entrepreneurs. Just because someone is not seated on a board doesn't mean they should not think about it. All of us need to think about our security, and now more than ever, even amateurs can actually hack without intention, but they will keep poking at whatever port is available or whatever loophole, and they can gain access. They would also be surprised themselves. So thank you so much, Peter. This has been very enlightening. The statistics are very informative, and this information will definitely be available in ISACA and Leading Boards Africa platforms. So if you still needed to digest what Peter was sharing, please feel free to visit these platforms. This information will be available. At this point, we would like to take a poll. Peter highlighted the importance of the board having people that are conversant with technology, or those that are tech savvy. At this point, we would like to get your input through a poll to find out if your board has, one of your board members is a technology professional, or they do have extensive knowledge in technology and can actually initiate this conversation. So please take a minute to populate the poll. They're just 2 questions. And so we can know how our boards fare with regard to knowledge in technology or knowledge with related to cybersecurity. Yes, just to indicate that if you have any questions regarding the presentation from our keynote speaker, please feel free to populate, to post your questions in the chat or in our Q&A section so that we can be able to address them all together. So any burning question at this point, please feel free to post it in the chat so that we will have a section, a session for Q&A, and we'll be able to have our speakers and our panelists answering all these questions. All right. I believe many of us have been able to we've all been able to answer the polls. At this point, we will be continuing to broadcast several polls just so that we can be able to collect insights from you, our attendees. We currently have over 80 people on board, and these currently, they span across several industries. So we are happy to be able to speak to people in the health sector, public sector, financial services industry, and audit and consulting. We have, thank you for your insights. And we have noticed that many people are aware that they do have a cybersecurity register. Over 96% of you responded that you are aware that this is available in your organization, which is an amazing thing. But we would like to indicate that having one is one thing, and implementing and continuously tracking it is yet another thing. So that is something for us to ponder over. I'd like to just indicate a saying that's been said by Brittany Homat, that as cybersecurity leaders, we have to create our message of influence, because security is a culture and you need the business to take place and be part of that security culture. So security as a culture has become a part of us. It's with us in our homes, with all in our families, and then we now speak a similar language when we get into our businesses and are trying to provide value to our different customers. So at this point, we would like, we'll be taking a quick break. It will be a 5-minute break so that we can ponder over our keynote areas that Peter has touched, and we can come up with different questions that burning questions that we would like to obtain answers. And once we return, we will be talking to our amazing panelists that have served on several boards and have lots of insights to share regarding technology knowledge at the board level, as well as at management level. And we will be taking different questions for them that are related to this topic. So let's please take a break and warm up for our next session. Thank you very much. And we will be taking different questions for them that are related to this topic. So let's please take a break and warm up for our next session. Thank you very much. And we will be taking
that we did
different questions for them that are related to this topic.
by giving
So
you the right
let's please
skills,
take a
the
break
right
and
knowledge,
warm up for our next
mindset
session.
and
Thank you
behavior
very much.
that is required to lead teams and lead them effectively.
One of the key takeaways that I took away was a quote from Steve Jobs. Great things in business are not done by one individual. They are done by a group and a team of people that is working effectively together.
So I came to learn my personality, but also it taught me how to work with the different personalities, given that I lead the team.
My greatest takeaways from this program have been: one, the concept of self-leadership. Understanding who I am, what I can do, and where I'm going would make me a very good and influential leader.
I came out of this training when I had made a decision that I'm going to be a leader who is going to inspire my team and influence their performance rather than coerce them to do their work.
I would like to encourage all leaders, managers, people who want to better their leadership skills to join leading boards in the next cohort that happens between the 10th and the 14th of July. It costs a paltry 300,000 shillings to improve your leadership skills. See you there.
The follow-up to leader training that we did was aimed at shaping a manager by giving you the right skills, the right knowledge, mindset, and behavior that is required to lead teams and lead them effectively.
One of the key takeaways that I took away was a quote from Steve Jobs. Great things in business are not done by one individual. They are done by a group and a team of people that is working effectively together.
So I came to learn my personality, but also it taught me how to work with the different personalities, given that I lead the team.
My greatest takeaways from this program have been one, the concept of self-leadership. Understanding who I am, what I can do, and where I'm going would make me a very good and influential leader.
I came out of this training when I had made a decision that I'm going to be a leader who is going to inspire my team and influence their performance rather than coerce them to do their work.
I would like to encourage all leaders, managers, people who want to better their leadership skills to join leading boards in the next cohort that happens between the 10th and the 14th of July. It costs a paltry 300,000 shillings to improve your leadership skills. See you there. Join leading boards in the next cohort that happens between the 10th and the 14th of July. It costs a paltry 300,000 shillings to improve your leadership skills. See you there.
All right, thank you very much. We are back now. I'm hoping all of us are still here. We are back for our next session. Please feel free to post all your questions that you may have with regard to this topic. If you would like to demystify it for you, please post that as well. We're here to make it as simple as possible so that the implementation is very, very easy. So at this point, we will move into our next session where we will have our panel discussion. And allow me to introduce our panelists. Our first panelist is Mr. Bernard Wanyama. Bernard is a seasoned professional in the IT industry with a strong focus on IT service delivery, cybersecurity, information security, and systems integration. Bernard has over 17 years of industry experience and has previously held IT service management roles with Barclays, that's ABSA Bank, and Bank of Africa. Bernard is a founder and managing director of Syntech Associates, where he for more than 12 years has worked on several projects that include UNICEF, Coca-Cola, Google, Andela, Kasna International, Arizona Computer Services, and he's Deloitte as well. And he's worked in Africa and Middle East as well as North America. Bernard is passionate about cybersecurity and digital. He's a digital infrastructure expert, and he's currently the serving president for the ISACA Kampala chapter. You're very welcome, Bernard.
Thank you very much.
Our second panelist is Rita Akot Appel. Rita is currently serving as a director, global data management at Finca Impact Finance. Rita joined Finca International in 2012 as a regional director for the African region and head of Africa Shared Services Center, after which she took on the Director Global Project Management Office in 2020 before taking on the current global data role in 2022. Prior to joining Finca, Rita led technology departments in several banks. She led in Centenary Bank, Nile Bank, Barclays Bank, now called ABSA, and the East Africa Development Bank. So she brings with her a wealth of knowledge and experience in information technology and has over 20 years of experience in technology management and leadership. Her main focus is on the maintenance of enterprise applications, service delivery of IT-enabled business solutions for both private and multinational institutions. And she has a passion for technology risk management and people development. Rita holds a master's degree in business administration from Heriot-Watt University and a postgraduate in computer science, as well as a bachelor's degree in mathematics and physics from Makerere University. You are very welcome, Rita. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Eunice. I'm so happy to be here.
All right. So our third panelist and our keynote speaker, I'll just briefly reintroduce him at this point. Peter Mukuru, he's passionate about digital transformation and has over 2 decades of experience in IT. He's held C-level positions and serves as a non-executive director for several companies. He's very passionate about cybersecurity and holds a master's degree in business administration and IT, a master of IT degree. Peter is passionate about continuous learning and coaching and mentoring young professionals. So if you are a young professional that's aspiring to grow up the ladder, all our panelists are very passionate about inspiring you to grow in this field. So do feel free to reach out to after this webinar series so that you can get the help that you need. All right, so we will be beginning with our questions to different panelists. Okay, so Rita, we will be starting with you. And this is an area in cyber risk as a business risk. So how does cyber risk impact the overall risk profile of an organization? And how and what role do board members play in managing and mitigating cyber risks?
Thank you, Eunice. I think for starters, it's important to acknowledge that cyber security and cyber risk is not an IT risk only. And I think we need to acknowledge that it is a business risk and a corporate governance issue for boards. A cyber cybersecurity threat can affect many areas of any business operations, and it's imperative to understand the company's cyber damage in economic terms, given the enterprise-wide negative impact. It could be on strategy because it may impact on your delivery of strategy. It could be on the reputation, compliance, regulation, legal, operation, and finance and financial. So, if you break that down in terms of the impact, financial risk, a cybersecurity attack can result into financial losses for an organization due to theft of funds, loss of revenue, the cost of just remediation and addressing and bringing back the systems, it can be huge for an organization. So, and apart from the cost of, cyber crime, from a financial perspective, it can also damage the corporate image, the brand the value, the market value of an organization. And that leads definitely to reputational risks. And in terms of, organizations not looking at cybersecurity as a business risk, they may be able to be heavily impacted in these areas. Loss of customer trust, customer experience, negative media coverage, and of course, the potential loss of business overall. Operationally as well, cyber attacks can disrupt the organization's operations. I mean, talk about productivity, talk about delays in downtime, because how long are you actually spending on bringing the systems back up, and all this again still leads to, reputational damage. Of course, the other area is around the legal liabilities that will come with that for an organization. We all know the regulatory fines or legal settlements that are related to data breaches and non-compliance to certain data regulations. And so I think the role of the board is really, really important. And the boards are really charged with overseeing companies' cybersecurity risk. And I think when we look at the different areas, I think there are some 5 principles also that can guide boards in terms of being able to oversee cyber risk at the board level. And I think one is really understanding an approach to cybersecurity from a strategic point of view, and not just IT, as I mentioned. Directors should understand, legal implications of cybersecurity and how they relate to the company's specific, circumstances. Of course, adequate access to cybersecurity expertise is important, and I know we've taken that poll, earlier on, and ensuring that there is regular and adequate time on board agendas to really talk about cybersecurity. And I think also directors should set the expectation that management should establish an enterprise-wide cybersecurity management framework with adequate staffing and budgets, and things like that. So I think, just ensuring that the discussion happens at the board level is really important. Boards should hold, management accountable for implementing effective cybersecurity measures and ensuring that organizations are prepared to respond to, cyber incidents. How is the board collaborating with IT, with management, with the different stakeholders to ensure that the cyber-related risks are effectively, being managed? Oversight is really a board's role, and I think it's important to ensure that we have adequate cybersecurity policies in place for any organization. It's embedded within risk management. Education, I think, is one that sometimes is taken lightly and left to the, to the staff. It should rather be a top-down approach, and management should really walk the talk when it comes to education, right? So board members should stay informed about emerging cyber threats and trends. And I think just having a forum like this one is really a good, step. And I hope a number of board members are actually present today because just knowing about the emerging trends is a good step, right? Making informed decisions and providing guidance. And when you talk about education, employee training is really, really key, because it's not just about the technical solutions that we employ in the organization. Cybersecurity, as I said, is a business risk and should be seen as a business risk. And so the issue of culture, do we have a cybersecurity culture within our organization, right, is really, really important. How many cyber attacks employees are often, are often the major vulnerable, points. And therefore, the whole organization should share responsibility, collaborate, and undergo education and training, where possible. So a cybersecurity culture, I would say, would be the start with a thought at the top of both the board and the senior executive members. So the right culture should enforce the comprehensive plans, support its implementation, and mitigate, potential losses. And with that, Eunice, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita. Thank you for that enlightenment. Being a part of all this, the business risks for an organization is very important. And at this point, since cybersecurity greatly contributes to the bottom line of every business, it probably needs to be at the top of the business risk profile. so that it's discussed when everybody is still fresh before they drill down and get lost in all the other risks. Because right now it is here with us, and just like the business has faced all kinds of threats, cybersecurity is one of them. It's just that now it's more of a focus because it directly affects not just the bottom line, but the reputation of an organization, which organizations and businesses have strived to build over the years. So board members that are here, that is something that is not something you'd like to be part of as a reputational risk that matures for your organization. So if anything, if there's anything that should drive us from the governance aspect as leaders, that should be it among all the other things that we worry about. Thank you so much, Rita. So we'll move to our next panelist. That's Bernard. Bernard, this subject is on the cybersecurity threats. What are the key cybersecurity threats and challenges facing organizations today in the context of Uganda and globally? We definitely want to bring it home because it all starts here. And how can board members stay informed and proactive in addressing these threats? Over to you, Bernard.
Thank you very much. So you could say off the top of everybody's head, you'll be conversant with things like ransomware as the most impactful and threatening phenomenon out there in terms of cybersecurity. But you also have things like misconfiguration as people go into the cloud and put their data and systems and business processes online. You have supply chain issues where third parties that you depend on, whether operationally or licensing their software and depending upon them to complete key business processes, those third parties also introduce to you risk that is very real. You also have things like social media risk, where you have to watch your reputation and your ability to respond to a social media incident or complaints that go out of hand and have the potential to bring down your organization, whether from a stock price perspective or simply customers just walking away and choosing with their feet to go to competition. And then we have things like data breaches that attract regulatory sanctions and legal implications. And then there's the all-time huge thing of fraud. Now, in third world economies like Uganda, fraud becomes a real issue because we lack the consumer protection mechanisms that are effective, things like insurance, credit card based protection for consumers. Those are not as effective as you'd like them to be. And so the customers or the individuals that are impacted have to bear the cost, and it is quite significant. And so fraud becomes center stage in an environment like ours where we don't have adequate consumer protection. But then taking that further, I think at a personal level, there's issues about personal safety as you look at what goes on in terms of crimes that are perpetuated on digital platforms, child abuse, human trafficking, kidnap, and extortion. Those are really pronounced in this kind of society because social protections are not as strong. The law enforcement and criminal justice system is not as strong as it should be. And so you have all that coming together to impact trust in online and digital systems. We have fought so hard, invested so much money to put up digital systems, both at public level as well as private organizations. And that hard won progress is threatened by a lack of trust in digital systems because of the kind of threats we are seeing at cyber level. Now, turning back to board members and how they can, be a part of the solution, I think, as Rita mentioned, taking interest and looking at cyber not just as a technical issue, but bringing it to the center of the table, the boardroom table, or the boardroom in that context would be the most important thing. Having cybersecurity as an agenda item that really centers the discussion on the impact on the organization and related parties, and then having a sense of what kind of skills do we have and what kind of formal education do we need at the top. They usually say the bottleneck is always at the top, and so board members need to spotlight themselves from time to time to ensure that they have the right capabilities, they have the right knowledge, they have access to experts, they have access to the right information to be able to discharge this responsibility at the top where they sit. And then asking the right questions and being able to have the confidence to receive the right answers. I think a lot of times our boards are not receiving the right information because maybe they have set a precedent where they don't tolerate a lot of negative feedback from management and other sources. And so we've got to kind of look in the mirror and say what is going on and how can we actually address issues and perhaps stop expecting good news only. There must be a sense of reality and being able to anchor ourselves in the right reality. And so really it's about taking ownership and being able to steer the ship because we have the right information and the right attitude and the right skills to do the job at the board level. Thank you so much, Eunice.
Oh, thank you so much, Bernard. As indicated, board members need to spotlight themselves. It is hard to understand or appreciate a subject that you have totally no knowledge about. And so it's important that as board members, we read about what cybersecurity is. There is a lot of material that is demystified. Many people are discouraged by the jargon, but I think just like every subject, whether it's engineering or medicine, there's always a demystified version across the internet that will break it down in the simplest, for lack of a better word, elementary terms, so that we can be able to appreciate this topic. So there is no intimidation that should be there with regard to cybersecurity. It is as simple as keeping yourself safe. And we need to know more and more about all the information is available across the internet, and trends are being broadcast for all of us as board members, as leaders, to appreciate what's happening across the globe and to be able to future-proof our organizations. Thank you so much, Bernard, for those insights. And I'm hoping that we are taking note of how we can stay informed and proactive in addressing these threats. So the cybersecurity agenda still should continue to be discussed in each board meeting so that it's a topic that stays alive in every board member's mind, whether they're in a meeting or whether they're going about their business and picking different insights on different subjects. All right, now we know that an organization can have its cybersecurity and talk about how they think about it every day. But the question comes through, what is your posture, your cybersecurity posture as an organization? And panelist Peter will elaborate more of this on how board members can effectively assess the cybersecurity posture of the organization and ensure safeguards are in place to protect all the critical assets and data. Peter, over to you. How can board members approach this subject?
Thank you very much, Eunice. I want to use the analogy of going to a boxing match. You need to check that you've trained enough, you've gained sufficient muscle, technique, and so on and so forth. But you've also taken cognizance of your opponent. Usually in a boxing match, you'd have perhaps insight of your opponent, and you kind of know their weaknesses and so on. We take it as a football match and so on and so forth. So as organizations, we need to one, appreciate that I think as has been mentioned earlier, I mentioned Rita responded, or rather re-emphasized it, and Bernard, that cybersecurity is a business risk. It's a strategic matter. So how can cybersecurity affect you as a company? You know, you need to take stock of that, you know, and if you think of your organization, and I would say, imagine on a Wednesday morning, you switch off all your IT systems. Would you, one, continue in business? Would you, two, if you continued in business, would you still be competitive? If you are competitive, would you be thriving or limping? And would you then live for another hour, another day, and so on and so forth? For most of us, for most of the organizations, you realize that in this current day and age, chances are if your IT systems were off, your companies as well as closed. So your posture comes down to, have you taken stock of your abilities to protect yourself, to protect your data, to protect your systems? If you look at confidentiality, are you sure that all the data you have, nobody who is not authorized cannot access? If you look at availability, can you be assured and give yourself assurance that if I want to access the system at any one time, and remember there are two angles here. If you're engaging with your supply chain, with your customers, can they access you? If you're on Amazon, you know, most of us perhaps are familiar with Amazon, or you use your Gmail, and I want to access my Gmail at 3 a.m., can I use it? If I want to access my ATM service at any one time, can I use? So do I have that 24-hour clock? And so on and so forth. So the posture relates to our ability to protect ourselves against threats, and the fact that we've assessed these abilities and that we are able to bring the war book or playbook into action when any of these things happen. So for a board member, for boards, having the responsibility of ensuring that the company is a going concern, that you set strategic direction, that you're in charge of risk, and so on. This is not something you can ignore. You have to take cognizance of that. How do you do that? Yes, one of you have said you have a risk management framework. Is cybersecurity pronounced there? You know, have you rated that risk? As a board, have you rated your appetite for those different risks? Have you provided sufficient resourcing in terms of structure, governance, budgets for all those things to happen? Because we can't expect milk from a cow when we're not giving it the food to eat. So that's what posture means in few words. Your ability to take stock and ensure that you have the necessary capabilities to withstand any shock or any attack should it happen, and still come back thriving. And I think if you look at it from the point of a going concern, from a point of business continuity, from a point of risk management, the board needs to ensure that every hour and every minute the business is able to run, irrespective of what things might come or what attacks might come at it, of whatever nature, whether they have a reputational connotation, they have a monetary value, they have just a nuisance of not being available, taking you off. Of course, going off also has a monetary value, but something may not be certain, but you've lost business, you've lost reputation, and so on. Yeah. So boards must take interest in that and ensure that they have those conversations and they're able to assess those, rank them, set the appetite, and provide for mechanisms to address any of those incidents should they happen. And of course, should anything happen, then you've checked that you're able to recover from it. One, address it and get back to where you should have been. Imagine you have a car and you have a puncture, that you have a spare tire, and you should be able to get back running as fast as possible. How much time that takes is something that we need to ensure that we minimize as much as possible. That sometimes we shouldn't even feel an incident happened, although we must take stock that an incident happened. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. I like the analogy of the boxing match and how you need to be able to study your opponent so that you're able to future-proof yourself. And the bit of the cyber posture is, as much as it has to be everybody in the organization and all the systems are well-proofed. There is the analogy that the weakest link is usually the user. That is the personal person, a slang that is used in this day and age. Yes, normally it's if you're driving in a car, so to speak, and all of you are seated on a pickup and you think you're safe, but one person's arm is on the lead that opens the back, that is a major risk. Once that opens, everybody falls off. And so that is how cybersecurity operates in an organization. So thank you for that insight, Peter. And so the posture, as you indicated, goes all the way down to the last individual, because that is one of the most vulnerable points that we as humans know how to exploit. And exploiting with things that are as simple as favorite colors. And there's a saying by Larry Alton that cyber criminals can use personal details, such as your favorite color, the last 4 digits of your credit or debit card, your email address, to make educated guesses about your sign-in credentials. And so cyber criminals most times may not be professional. It can be an amateur. So board members and leaders on this platform, an amateur can be able to get into your house or your organization. So it's not just the technical guys who know what to do, but someone that's taken their time to just make it a hobby and guess can one day be able to open that gate. And so the posture is a very important thing that you need to be able to take charge of, as Peter indicated. And so Rita, we were able to talk about the legal requirements. I would like to know if you'd like to expand on that for the local context.
Yes, Eunice. Yeah, thank you. I know I touched a bit about it in terms of the board being aware. And I think, the legal and regulatory environment is evolving, very fast globally. And so, boards need to keep abreast of new legislations, new laws, and regulatory agencies, at different levels. And I think for boards to be able to do this, they need to have a clear picture of those potential threats. And I know we'll continue talking about what those threats are, and evaluate and implement, the appropriate response plans, which are compliant with the laws. So failure for the boards or management to actually know what the laws are can actually find them in a very difficult position should we have any breach, related to, cybersecurity. So I think, firstly, before diving into the local, the local scene, is the boards must understand the legal and regulatory implications related to cyber risk, cybersecurity, and data protection. And of course, secondly, they should ensure that the adequate policies are in place. I talked about that at the beginning. And of course, then thirdly is, from the potential liability, facing companies, board of directors also face litigation, right? From stakeholders or investors. And so it's really important because investors could target, board members, and things like that because of lack of oversight of programs and capabilities and knowledge of such laws. So I think it's really, really critical that, the board role is clear, and it's ensuring that cyber governance exists within any organization. If we look at the local scene, I think it's really important for us to understand what laws we have. For example, in Uganda, I know that we do have a number of, laws. We have the Computer Misuse Act. I think it was 2011, but amended in 2022. That criminalizes various, cyber-related offenses. And, it's important that, we, board and management, know what these laws are. We also, I think, have the Data Protection and Privacy Act. I think it's 2019, as far as I recall. But it also focuses on protection of personal data, privacy, and this one makes reference to, to global, the Data Privacy Act. I think we also do have some, act of sorts from NITAU, and I'm not sure if that has been updated, but I think we need to look at all these resources to ensure that we are aware of what the legal implications are and how we can actually embed those legal requirements, those regulatory requirements within our risk profiling as we look at risk management as a whole. From the international context, I think just ensuring that we are aligning with, say, the general data protection regulations. I know some of this may be, may impact more on the EU, but then we do make reference to that in some of the acts that we have. We do have, cybersecurity and infrastructure security agencies. This is really at a global level, and I know that some of them, may be implemented through different, programs, especially for international organizations that may have presence in, say, in Uganda. We do have SABOX, and I know that I recall in Barclays we actually had to comply with a number of the, the SABOX requirements. So there are some of those, requirements that we need to know. There are industry-specific, regulations. For example, the PCI DSS for financial institutions that are, looking at, payment cards and credit card management and things like that, and just overall understanding international standards and frameworks. I think board members should be familiar with the, ISO standards, NIST, cybersecurity frameworks that can actually, organizations can align with, right? Areas around cross-border data transfers, especially for international organizations with local presence, within the organization. So I think just the awareness of these laws is really, really important for board members, because then you're able to always make reference and ensure that you're not caught, on the wrong side of the law. Thank you, Eunice.
All right, thank you so much, Rita. There's lots to be able to read about the different laws and to make sure we are in line. There are quite a number of laws still that govern locally, but those that organizations must subscribe to globally, because now everybody has utilized the internet, and in one way or the other, they might be impacted. And the fact that cybercrime is universal, it's not the cyber hackers will not only exist in Uganda for Uganda customers. Someone in the Netherlands will target a Ugandan customer. So, and it will be as easy as just being able to access your data across the internet and finding their way to your private information. So thank you so much for that, Rita. So once we talk about legal requirements, then that brings in the thought of organization needs to have a plan or a strategy on how they're going to be able to address all these different cyber related things. And so over to you, Bernard. What can a cybersecurity strategy, what is it and what can it entail? How can they put all these things into one document or an area that will guide how they can implement this in an organization?
Thank you very much, Eunice. I think it's important to start with the fact that boards are good at strategy. Boards do strategy all the time. It's good to have a cybersecurity strategy that frames your goals and how you're going to go about delivering those goals from a cybersecurity perspective. So cybersecurity is going to be a sort of do or die area for any organization. We have to think about resilience from a cybersecurity perspective. You've got to have a plan to be hit and survive the hit. So every organization has to be ready to face a major cybersecurity attack and recover from it before it's taken down or it's compromised in terms of being a going concern. So that's just a reality. It's a matter of when and not if. So everybody has to be really clear on that. That's the assumption that you've got to work with. It's a matter of when and not if. And so you got to start with the assets. What are you protecting? Is it, does your data look like? What does your intellectual property look like? What are the key business processes that drive the organization and help you to achieve or enable you to achieve your mission as an organization? And then the underlying infrastructure, the hardware, the software, whether it's on premises or in the cloud, third parties that you work with to complete those key business processes or you depend upon to ensure that your operations are streamlined. Then you've got to also look at the stakeholders that are involved in the ecosystem, your staff, your partners, the clients and customers, the regulators that impose certain requirements upon you, as well as the different geographies or political territories in which you operate, which impose legal and other considerations that you must take into account. And then the goals for protection, you really have to look at the exposure that you have arising out of the kind of technology you're using, the kind of operational model that you're running, your third party and supply chain. I think we cannot overstate this. The supply chain becomes really where things either work out or things fail. And because of the nature of third-party risk management, you have to do a lot of work to ensure that your supply chain, your third-party risk management is realistic. It's able to protect you. It's able to give you a sense of seeing risks and anticipating them around the corner before they hit you in the face. And that's really got to be well understood and well articulated in whatever strategy you are putting down. And then perhaps in terms of approach, I want to say that it's got to be business first. It's got to be a sense that the business is what is leading your strategy. A lot of strategies come out as technology first or product first or solution first, but it's got to be a very clear answer to the question of what problem are you solving and who are you protecting. There's got to be very good strategic alignment between what the organization intends to achieve and how technology and other things come to follow on that to ensure that the business can actually achieve and win in that particular area. Then we've got to stress that it's got to be a risk-based approach. Having a risk-based approach is a scientific way of allowing you to prioritize, allowing you to have cost-effective protection. A lot of organizations tend to either throw money at the problem or totally ignore it on the other extreme because they may not feel that they have the resources to afford the kind of solutions that are being proposed on the market. And so there's got to be a sense of a risk-based approach that allows you to organize and tier your protection mechanisms. You've got to have a sense of preventive controls. You've got to have your detective controls and your response controls, because at the end of the day, you do all the preventive mechanisms that you might get your hands on. But the assumption is that there is a time when you'll have to face an attack and you have to respond to an attack and recover from an attack. So that has got to be part of your strategy. I would like to just mention a few other things. Organizations should aim to automate and orchestrate their security strategy so that you leave the heavy lifting to technology. You automate a lot of the controls and ensure that you are leveraging technology to actually get efficient outcomes or efficiency out of whatever initiative you're doing. There's many organizations that have deployed so much technology but are unable to make that technology work together. And so the return on investment is rather low, and you cannot really justify operating at that level. So an approach of automation and orchestration really helps you to gain more value for money. And then it's important to think about a data-driven approach, because there's so much value in data, and organizations have to start to look for insights from the data that they have internally and externally to be able to leverage that to craft and to respond to risk as it emerges. Cyber risk is dynamic, and highly kinetic, meaning that that you can be safe right now and the next moment you are no longer safe. Or you could have an attack that evolves very quickly and outstrips your response mechanisms or your detection mechanisms. So the nature of the beast or the nature of the enemy or the opponent, as Peter had mentioned, is very, very important. The dynamic nature of cybersecurity risk cannot be overstated, and we have to think about that very clearly. As I conclude, I want to talk about the people. People should be seen as the strongest link. How can we get better outcomes from the people perspective? How do we get our people to respond better, to behave better, to behave in a way that gives us better outcomes in terms of cybersecurity? And then I think it's important to also speak to the ethics side of things. A lot of cybersecurity is premised on technology and skills and solutions, but human beings have a lot to add, and the ethics part of cybersecurity, I think, deserves more attention so that we do not really spend so much money buying things, yet the hearts and minds of people that will be required to behave correctly are ignored. So we've got to examine how much more we can do with our people, both the insider or the employees, as well as the third parties that we depend upon to complete critical tasks. And perhaps I'd just like to challenge board members. Satya Nadella, the Microsoft CEO, said that every company is now a software company. Whether you like it or not, every company today depends so much on software or on its software that it is worth being classified as a software company. And so the same way board members understand the balance sheet and understand the key business processes around a particular entity that they look after, is the same way they should start to take interest in the technology stack and supply chain and associated risks that that organization depends upon to deliver its mission. So we've got to think about it differently and consider how much more we can do in terms of managing cyber risk at the board by doing things better or differently. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bernard. The focus on the balance sheet and definitely is a light bulb moment, I believe, for many board members. The attention needs to be able to move to also the cybersecurity strategy, because the balance sheet can greatly be affected by failing to pay attention to the cybersecurity strategy. So thank you so much for that insight. And at this point, we would like to engage our participants with a poll. Now that we have been, panelists have been able to share information on the different things that you need to know about cybersecurity at the board level, we would like to get feedback from you on the different questions. Some of these are, does your board have cybersecurity as an agenda item? If you are a board member, this is to you. Do you discuss this at the board, or it never sees the light of day? It's very important to be truthful, because therein lies the action that we all must take or start to take as board members. And so please feel free to answer the different polls that will be coming through. For just take a minute. We'll also be looking at whether the enterprise has a risk register and cybersecurity is covered therein. Feel free to answer if you're not sure, because then that opens up a need for you to be able to discover this in your organization and know what's happening. We'll also be looking at whether it has a formal cybersecurity incident response plan. And if you're not sure about this, feel free to answer as such, because that then will trigger you to find out what this cybersecurity incident response plan is. And we will talk, we'll be talking more about it in just a minute. So please take time to fill the polls so that we can proceed. Please give a thumbs up if you've been able to complete the poll so that we can be able to dive more into our questions with our panelists. All right, thank you very much. Bernard, as you were talking about the cyber security strategy, and I imagine that quite a number of our participants here may be wondering about access to these skills and how those that run boards, that smaller boards, because as we are all aware, the largest number of businesses are SMEs in Uganda. And so some businesses may not have the luxury of a big board, but their founders are still very passionate about making sure their businesses are future-proofed. And so how would they ensure access to these skills? If you can touch that very briefly so that they can also know how they can be able to access skills related to cybersecurity on smaller boards.
Thank you very much, Eunice. I think it's important for board members to get skills. So I would advise that you take up a course on IT governance and start to interest yourself in matters IT governance and technology at governance level, because that is where the discussion needs to be sustained. We also recommend that you engage your audit, internal and external audit organizations that you work with, to start to talk about cybersecurity and to have the conversation about cybersecurity and to perform cybersecurity related assessments and audits and any other capacity building oriented engagements that you can afford, you can find worthwhile for you, so that at the end of the day, there's a sense that you are getting better from a capacity perspective and you are moving in the right direction. So there's a lot of resources at ISACA Kampala chapter. We offer this service, educational service, as well as this kind of pro bono services to our country, I would say. And so we do it because we want the organizations that run in this economy to be better and to have a better digital economy outcome as a country. And so please feel free to engage us. I think I've shared the links and we shall share them again. We are always happy to support, to advise, and to facilitate where need be. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Bernard. So all the information is available. Please feel free to use the links and contact ISACA so that all these skills can be availed to you and you can be able to start your journey on this subject, this key subject of cybersecurity, because it will go a long way in helping our businesses grow without interruptions from cyber-related threats. Thank you so much. Please continue to post your questions. The links have been posted again in our chat, so please feel free to save them so that you can always reach out to ISACA Uganda for the assistance you require and or to access all knowledge resources regarding cyber security. At this point, I would like to call upon Peter. If you can quickly touch on the people person, the technical guy or lady or professional that will be, how easy is it to get such people into an organization? Are they not too expensive? How can human resources make sure that there's someone that can interact with the board from management about this subject of cybersecurity and keep the conversation alive? Peter, over to you.
Thank you very much, Eunice. I think the theme as it's going, one, we start with strategy. We start with why is the business in existence and what do we need to ensure that we keep going. And the spotlight is on cybersecurity. So if this is an important matter, then we can't be looking at it from a point of cost. We look at it from a point of an investment, from a point of making sure that your risks are managed and nothing gets into the way of managing or rather attaining your strategic objectives. So if that's then the mindset, then, and you've looked at what could get into the way, you know your business value, you know where you want to go, then the other parts of getting the right resources, becomes a matter that is dictated by your strategic direction. And it can no longer be an issue of, is this super expensive? If I was sick and I needed an organ transplant, yes, there is money to it, but I need to survive. If I don't care about life, then then cost doesn't matter, whether it's expensive or cheap, doesn't matter. So that's how I will look at it. And I think boards make decisions every day, investment decisions, matters of life or death in terms of the company's life or death. And that's the way these resources need to be looked at. Yes, globally, the figures, as I shared earlier, some surveys have mentioned a gap in terms of skills, but there's also a lot of skills coming up. I think what is important, first of all, is that this becomes a conversation. So as a board member, as Bernard has mentioned, have you taken care to understand it? Then two, in terms of finding resources, the resources, first of all, are available. They might be in short supply, but they're available. There are companies that could be our source. If you look at lawyers and so on, people have in-house counsel, they have external counsel. You could have in-house IT resources. You could outsource some of these resources in terms of cybersecurity if you can't afford to have a full-time one. But again, the affordability, I think, for me, comes down to a matter of what does it mean to your business. In terms of the resources, again, the challenge also we have with the IT professional or the digital world is that everybody who has touched the computer feels then they're an IT professional. And I say that with a lot of humility. It's important to check credentials. We have degrees in IT fields, so many, IT fields. So as this person studied we have professional certifications. ISACA offers those: Certified Information System Auditor, Certified Information Security Manager. And there are several other organizations that offer these Certified Information Security Professional, CISSP, and so many others, CompTIA. These are all different certifying bodies. So it's important that you check that this person is certified so that you're sure that one, they uphold professional ethics, they have the necessary skills and competences to support you. They can be accountable to you and the board, and they can hold, I think you're part of the question, that they can hold strategic level conversations. As we've said, this is not just a technical matter. You need the technical skills, true. As we've mentioned that, as you go up and become a captain, don't forget how to be a sailor. You need the technical skills, but you also need to have strategic conversations on where is the company going? What does this cybersecurity risk mean to the company? What would be the appetite? What can we allow? What can't we allow? And so on. So skills available, might be short supply, but I think start with the business, because many times we start with the cost. How much does it cost? I think that's the wrong question. The question is, what does it mean to our business if we did not have this? If we are okay with that answer and we're like, it means nothing, then cost doesn't matter. If it means that we would actually suffer with our regulatory compliance, we will suffer with our reputation, we'll suffer with maintaining our customer base because they can no longer trust us, our supply chain because we can no longer supply what we need to supply, and so on, then no longer a cost, it's a matter of survival. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Peter, for that. Definitely, it's important to assess and find out what the cost of the loss, financial loss will be to an organization, and so determine the need to make the investment in protecting the organization. Thank you so much for that insight, Peter. We will now move to our Q&A. So we welcome any questions, burning questions that you would like to address to our panelists. Please feel free to drop them in the chat so that our panelists can be able to throw more light. You can still raise a hand and we can be able to unmute you so you can share your questions, because this is a key topic that we are here to be able to demystify and provide insights on, so that board members and management are not leading organizations blindly, so that they can appreciate the need to know this information and be able to future-proof their organizations. So please feel free to send through your questions, and you can type them in a chat. You can raise a hand so that we can be able to. Yes, we have a question, a hand from Deo Okello. Please unmute yourself and proceed.
Yes, thank you everyone for this event. I would like to ask a question concerning basically the leadership. What keeps them up at night nowadays?
All right, thank you so much, Deo, for that. Rita, would you like to take that?
Yeah, I think I think it really depends on the different industries, and I think there are a lot of things depending on which industry any leader is in. What keeps them up at night. For the bigger part, of course, I think it's around how my organization, for example, needs to keep up with the technology. We needs to keep abreast of digital transformation. What do we need to do to ensure that we're able to reach the customers quicker, faster, and be more efficient? How do we make the customer the focal point? And considering the fact that technology is moving really, really fast, I think this is something that's keeping a number of leaders up or awake, in a sense that what can we do to catch up with this ever-evolving technology landscape? And of course, as we talk about the ever-evolving technology landscape, the issue of cybersecurity comes in for some leaders, right? But maybe it's not something that may keep some leaders awake at night. But I know that there are cases where leaders have been kept up because they didn't invest enough in cybersecurity, and they've had to act after the fact. And I know there are examples within even Uganda where there was a presentation on budget. This is how much we need to spend on cyber, and it was shunned and it wasn't approved and things like that. And at the end of the day, they actually, a couple of months later, they were they had a ransomware attack, and they had to spend 3 or 4 times more compared to what they had been presented by management in terms of the budget. So I think it really depends on the industry where you're at, and I believe there are several things that are keeping leaders awake at night. But I'll also let my fellow panelists chime into that if they have anything else to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita, for those insights. It's clear that you need to invest, otherwise you'll spend many nights awake after you're trying to recover from a cyber attack. Thank you so much for that, Rita. We have another question, and this goes to you, Bernard. How from the QA from our participants, how do we advocate for increased support towards cybersecurity in our organization, especially where budgets may be shunned?
So I think we need to start to communicate using business language. So instead of talking about ransomware as ransomware alone, we need to talk about things like productivity, how much productivity impact shall we have? We need to talk about things like reputational damage, the fines and the losses that we shall incur from penalties. We need to talk about the social media risk that the brand will face and the impact it will have. So taking it away from just technology and starting to speak to things that leaders pay attention to. The COO will pay attention to productivity. The CFO will pay attention to money. So instead of saying the risk is high, that's a qualitative measurement. Use a quantitative measurement and tell him how many millions of shillings will be lost. Instead of saying people will not work for 5 days, show the COO how much backlog there will be in the event of a 1 hour, 2 hour outage out of a risk that is material that you've identified. So starting to speak business language alongside technical risks will allow the message to get home. And I think we shall also start to speak to the top more. We have made a lot of progress training people in audit, in management roles, in risk management, in privacy roles. We are focusing more and more now on leaders at the top and on boards, so that from both ends we really have the right understanding of risk. So I believe things are getting better, and I think we can make things work much better as we go along. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much, Bernard. You touched on a very, very important topic. For long, jargon has been used, and at this point, relating the effects of cybersecurity to the balance sheet, to a language that every business person that is not technical understands, is very key, because then they open their eyes and imagine how I cannot afford to lose so many millions as a CFO. And so let's get this budget approved and let's start future-proofing our organization. So thank you so much for that. To Peter, just a quick one. We would like to make sure we don't overspill on our time. We've spilled by just 3 minutes. How do we establish a cybersecurity culture in a local government setting where the awareness of ICT functions are slowly coming up?
Thanks. And I think within the question lay the answer, where the awareness. So culture starts with, coming to the reality with that this is a matter of concern. We have to build that awareness. And I think many times we point a finger at the other person. And I like, as we point a finger to anybody, we check ourselves, whether you're a board member, you're a CEO, you're a head of function, how much within your sphere of influence and decision-making have you created the awareness and the realization that cybersecurity is an issue. Of course, it's so easy to talk about the complexities and the challenges, and I don't think there's any perfect environment, whether it's local government, mainstream government, private companies, public companies, whatever you touch, there's going to be so many things you could say, we can't do this because of this. But I think at every layer of influence, of course, the convention here is board, but board works with management, works with shareholders, and works with other stakeholders outside. We need to emphasize that. We need to ensure that we document these policies. Bernard has talked about the language. We use, many IT people use IT language. You speak to yourselves. If I'm speaking to communicate, I need to speak the language that the person I'm communicating to understand. So we could do so many of those things. Incident reporting. Are we reporting on what's happening, or are we waiting until even if we've not been attacked, and I put that not attacked in quotes, just to say we are aware these people tried to get in, or these incidents tried to happen, and we managed to stop them. That's important to report as well, so that we create a positive culture, not just to come to the board when there's a problem, not to only come to the board when we are big, also to come to the board and say, oh, we've done these wonderful things, and celebrated whatever small achievements we have. So I think the language, the within your sphere of decision making, as head of department, and doesn't have to be IT. It could be wherever you are, because you have responsibility for risk within your, decision making framework, and of course all the way to the board. And as I mentioned, at local government, at public, at private, what are you trying to achieve? We're trying to serve customers. We're trying to remain in business. We're trying to make a profit or make a service. So anything that gets into the way of that, you need to classify it, whether it is cyber, reputation, fraud, in whichever form, shape, format, and ensure that we address it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Peter. We do have a comment that monetizing cybersecurity and its impact draws attention to it. That money is a language everyone understands. And if you talk about loss of money, everybody pays attention. So thanks for that comment. In our comments, wow, questions are coming in through. Thank you for this session. Thank you, Bosa. You are very welcome. And we have questions that are coming through on recruiting cyber security experts. And whether Leading Boards Africa or ISACA provides these services. But I believe once we get to their sites and connect with our panelists, Bernard and the team at Leading Boards Africa, we definitely can take that conversation further on how you can be able to secure cyber security experts in your organization. Thank you so much. Many questions will be coming through. Please be sure that we will be able to send responses to your questions that may come through after. We do not want to keep you so long. We hope that this has been very, very insightful and a worthwhile discussion for you as our participants. And we would like to thank you for staying and getting all the nuggets, and also understanding how you need to communicate as leaders that need to communicate to the business. As IT heads of department, it's important to start demystifying, speak the business language, because when you want it to get across and be appreciated, we need to keep the jargon to the team that understands in IT, but also encourage them, because people in IT interact with people in the business. It's a community. And so one person demystifies for the other, then the gospel can spread across the organization. And so I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you that have participated. I'd like to thank our panelists, and would like to give each of them 30 seconds to give a closing remark. We will start with you, Peter, and then we can be able to wrap up.
Thank you very much. One, of course, to appreciate the colleagues who have joined, the questions, the comments that you've made. Cybersecurity cannot be an issue of one person or one group alone. It is something that we all must take note of and work together as partners in our different capacities to do this. The second issue, perhaps, which we didn't highlight so much, is the issue of incident management, that as board members, you need to have information and acquaint yourselves with what incidents are happening in the environment, whether or not those incidents were successful or not, and depending on the gravity and materiality of those incidents. So I think start getting the right information, get the right insight, set the right culture, and as Eneke the bird, take note of the environment, because if it changes, you need to change. Otherwise, we're going to just be lamenting and not taking action. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Peter. Over to you, Rita.
Thank you, Eunice. I think my parting points are really around one, board representation, and where we are unable to get board representation, we can reach out to the likes of ISACA and ensure that we're able to get support. But I think even just getting board representation from an advisory perspective, right? Because sometimes it is quite difficult to get someone to sit on the board, full time. But I think the issues around culture for me, I think is very important. And it's one that needs, as I said, start from the top down, and board members really need to be a part of the training, building the culture, of cybersecurity. So I think at the end of the day, it's all about how we build that cybersecurity culture in an organization that can ingrain and ensure that we have the right cybersecurity strategies. We are allocating the right budget. We are really focusing on the things that matter and looking at cybersecurity as a business risk and not an IT risk. So those would be my parting words, remarks, Eunice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita. Thank you for those insights and parting words. And Bernard would like to hear your parting words as well and nuggets.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank colleagues and board members who have managed to join the call. I think it's important to keep this discussion going, and also to voice my appreciation to those boards and those executive teams that have made a commitment to train their people, to sponsor their people, and ensure that we have better HR capacity. I think it's important to upload that achievement and that contribution. We have positioned ourselves as a digital economy. Uganda's population is young and is going to be young for a long time. And the way out of this, that leadership at a national level sees, is to have a digital economy. And so we shall see more and more investments in digital. We shall see more and more focus in digital. And it's up to us to make those investments worthwhile, to make them pay off. We shall have a great opportunity going forward as a youthful population that is digital savvy comes into working or the labor force. And so we have to do more, to be more proactive, and to commit ourselves to a digital society. So it's upon us to lay the foundation and to stretch ourselves to improve our capacity to gain benefit or to reap the benefit from a digital society. I want to say that the future is digital. Today, our biggest companies in the economy, the likes of MTN and Stanbic, have positioned themselves as platform organizations. They are no longer telecom companies, they're no longer banks, and they are going to be investing more and more in digital, and the rest of the economy will follow. And so there's a lot of opportunity to make things happen in the digital space. Our fintechs are innovating. The new foreign direct investment that's coming in, and even local capital and local innovation is around technology. So we have a great future around technology, and we have to steward that future and make it worthwhile for us as a country. So I want to thank you so much, and I wish you a fantastic Labor Day. Thank you. Heroes Day, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, Bernard. It's still Heroes Labor, so we'll give you we'll let you go on that. So thank you so much for those closing and parting remarks. I'd like to thank all our participants once again. Many questions are still coming through, and we will be able to respond to you privately. But above all, you can still reach out to Leading Boards Africa for governance training, as it has been posted in our chat. For boards that do not have cyber-related or security-related knowledge, do not despair. The solution is available in a demystified way. That is very important, so that you can relate this topic to your business, and it can make lots and lots of sense. But it's very important for technology to be part of the discussion at the board. We cannot emphasize that enough, because as it is now, we all are running software companies. We are no longer just running one business that is either in healthcare, or it is a software company, because software is the underlying enabler. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you so much. Please pick the links for ISACA and Leading Boards Africa from our chat, and feel free to reach out as soon as after this webinar series is done, so that we can be able to provide all the help that you require regarding this subject. Thank you so much for joining us from wherever you have joined us on the globe. And my name is Eunice Mwangala. I have been your host for the day. And at this point, I will say have a lovely, lovely Heroes Day for those in Uganda, and elsewhere, have a lovely day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eunice. Thanks, everyone.
And, my name is Eunice Mwangala. I have been your host for the day.
Thank you, Eunice. It was insightful.
Heroes Day for those in Uganda, and elsewhere,
You're
have
welcome.
a lovely day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eunice. Thanks, everyone.
And, my name is Eunice Mwangala. I have been your host for the day.
Thank you, Eunice. It was insightful.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
One of the key takeaways that I took away was a quote from Steve Jobs. Great things in business are not done by one individual. They are done by a group and a team of people that is working effectively together.
So I came to learn my personality, but also it taught me how to work with the different personalities, given that I lead the team.
My greatest takeaways from this program have been one, the concept of self-leadership. Understanding who I am, what I can do, and where I'm going would make me a very good and influential leader.
I came out of this training when I had made a decision that I'm going to be a leader who is going to inspire my team and influence their performance rather than coerce them to do their work.
I would like to encourage all leaders, managers, people who want to better their leadership skills to join leading boards in the next cohort that happens between the 10th and the 14th of July. It costs a paltry 300,000 shillings to improve your leadership skills. See you there. People who want to better their leadership skills to join leading boards in the next cohort that happens between the 10th and the 14th of July. It costs a paltry 300,000 shillings to improve your leadership skills. See you there.
The follow-up to leader training that we did was aimed at shaping a manager by giving you the right skills, the right knowledge, mindset, and behavior that is required to lead teams and lead them effectively.
One of the key takeaways that I took away was a quote from Steve Jobs. Great things in business are not done by one individual. They are done by a group and a team of people that is working effectively together.
So I came to learn my personality, but also it taught me how to work with the different personalities, given that I lead the team.
My greatest takeaways from this program have been one, the concept of self-leadership. Understanding who I am, what I can do, and where I'm going would make me a very good and influential leader.
I came out of this training when I had made a decision that I'm going to be a leader who is going to inspire my team and influence their performance rather than coerce them to do their work.
I would like to encourage all leaders, managers, people who want to better their leadership skills to join leading boards in the next cohort that happens between the 10th and the 14th of July. It costs a paltry 300,000 shillings to improve your leadership skills. See you there.